Greetings, Guardians, my name is Byfear. There have been many long shadows that have clung voraciously to the city's walls. There are more prominent ones that many know of, such as the 100-year siege of the Elixni or the catastrophic power of the forces of the Witness. But not all shadows are as long or as deep. Some are subtler, yet no less deadly. Such is the case for the stories such as Dredgen Yor and his dreaded Thorn, a guardian who slew guardians, a shame and stain upon our reputation. Since the very founding of the Last City, it has not been unheard of for guardians to kill other guardians. These stories almost always have a similar end. The traitors of the Concordat died at the hands of the New Monarchy loyalists. The renegade guardian Solar died at the hands of the hidden agent Arnor Mahal. The unending abyss Dredgen Yor died at the hands of the man with the golden gun, Shin Malphur. But for the longest time, there was a story of a guardian killer that went mostly unheard and unknown, veiled in a little mystery all on its own. However, today, we can start lifting that veil and uncovering the truth behind this killer. As with many of those that came before him, he's not necessarily known by his name. He is known better by the foul weapon with which he conducted his work. And this terrible killer's weapon is one of the oldest. The murderer's only known title is the Butcher, but you might know better his implement of destruction, the Red Death. This weapon has existed in-game for well over 10 years, being one of the original exotic weapons available to find in Destiny 1. Ever since its introduction, we've received hardly any information about the nature of this weapon itself. It had no exotic weapon quest back in Destiny 1, it was a random drop. All we know of the weapon was the lore from its old Grimoire card, and that Grimoire card reads as follows. Vanguard policy urges Guardians to destroy this weapon on sight. It's a Guardian killer. Only rumors tell of the mad Guardian who fashioned this butcher's tool. But its power is undeniable, and fear is a formidable weapon. Rumors and mystery of compelling sorts have been built from less, but still there was little evidence to suggest that we'd ever come across the creator of the Red Death, or hear about this terrifying figure with his butcher's tool that murdered Guardians. As it turns out, this would be the only identifying detail about the one who wielded Red Death that we would get. His title, the Butcher. This, and that the Guardian in question was referred to as he, and we didn't get that information until now in the final shape. Whatever the nature of the man that was once called the Butcher, it is clear that his weapon bore the proof of his power. On the barrel of Red Death, there were 9 skulls, each a tally mark for a Guardian killed, seemingly. Each painstakingly carved into the weapon after the kill had been confirmed. According to the new lore of Red Death, the Butcher would have added a 10th, before being stopped by a warlock using solar light, who would strike down the Butcher along with her team. We don't know the names of the 9 that came before, but we know that the 10th was Ceto. Neither Ceto nor the Butcher are mentioned anywhere in the history of Destiny, so we have no further information on the killer or his final victim, but based on the history of the weapon, there can be little doubt that Ceto was also a Guardian. But there is something more that you can learn from the more intimate story of Red Death. Take a listen just a little closer. Vanguard policy still urges Guardians to destroy this weapon on sight. First is disassembly, taking extra caution for the well-honed bayonet. After disassembly comes cleaning. She gathers the swabs, the oils, the corrosive agents. Red Death clings to the grime of its past battles. She scrapes it with spin metal wool for hours before the last signs of the skulls stenciled into the body finally vanish. The team had taken the Butcher down before he'd added a mark for Ceto, light of her light. The weapon's tally is 1 short. Even reduced to pieces, The Red Death is a malevolent presence. It knows its purpose. It wants to continue its work. After cleaning comes purification. She reassembles the weapon and cradles it as though to fire. Her light boils up, turning radiant. The flare of solar light is the advent of warmth after a cold night, the healing power of life itself. Wings spread high on her back and paint scorch marks along the ceiling. In her arms, Red Death glows red, then yellow, then white. It fights the change. She does not let go. Its shadows burn away one by one until none are left. After purification comes dedication. Slowly, she lets go of her light. Her wings flicker, then fade. And when Red Death is cold metal in her hands once more, a kernel of solar light lingers within. Its purpose made new. She will find those who would strip Guardians of their final life. She will bring them into the light, not for revenge, but for justice, for Ceto. Ceto's death would be the catalyst for the Butcher's downfall and for the cleansing of the Red Death by those who inherited the legacy of this dark weapon. It was only through fire and its new purpose that it could shine anew. But the process of reaching this point was not simply a task of cleaning and repurposing the parts of the gun. There was something else to Red Death. The lore seems to describe the very nature of this weapon as alive. Even after the skull marks had been scraped away, even after the weapon had been disassembled down to its parts and pieces, the weapon is described as if it's a living thing. It is described as though murder was its choice, and as though it wished to invite others to join it in this accursed task. There are certainly records of cursed weapons in Destiny that can possess a grip on Guardians who wield them. The weapons of sorrow such as Thorn and Osteo-Striga more recently come to mind, and they are indeed described in a similar manner. But their description of their purpose was always hunger. In the instance of Red Death, there is seemingly no hunger, only purpose, only bloodlust. A bloodlust born of what the lore describes only as shadows. After Red Death was cleansed by the Guardian in question, its new purpose was rediscovered in solar light, with the power to cure ailments of those in proximity. The fire of light had replaced the malice of the dark. In the describing of this process, I can't help but think of another form of cleansing that was similarly enacted by a Guardian not so long ago in the grand scheme of things, a process to cleanse the taint from another weapon of great power. It reminds me of us. When we boarded the Dreadnought and defeated the Taken King, his sword, Willbreaker, was left stabbed into the ritual site of the Altar of Oryx. Eris then reclaimed a shard of Willbreaker and gifted it to us. With the assistance of Lord Shaxx, we reforged these weapons into our own blades of power. But the process of forging these swords required a demonstration of light's conquest over darkness. This was partially because the blade was made of a material called Hadium, a material that was paracausally attuned and was reactive to the actions and power of those things that were around it. This meant that initially, with Oryx's great power from the shard of the blade incorporated into our new swords, it was a thing of darkness. But we would cleanse this newly reformed sword by defeating Ekthar, the blade of Oryx, deep in the heart of the Dreadnought. Hadium is a metal from beyond our own dimension, so I doubt that Red Death is forged with such a material. But the implication is still a staggering one. Can someone's darkness, or perhaps simply their evil, be strong enough to imprint purpose, or even shadows, on a weapon generally? We perhaps know that the inverse is true, given that Thorn was corrupted from what was once Rose. This corrupted weapon then went on to change Razel-Azir into the monster that was Dredgen Yor. But those instances require specific intent from Hive sorcery. We seemingly have no proof of a weapon doing the inverse. Those weapons are made with purpose in mind and directly crafted from something new. Red Death is different. It feels as though the change and the malice upon it was fueled by the purpose of death itself, and whatever the Butcher did to encourage such a purpose is unknown, but there is no hint of hive sorcery here, only death. We can, however, seemingly tell from, well, just the macabre look of the original Red Death, and from the nature of it, that it's more likely that Red Death manifests this purpose as more bloodlust and carnage rather than cold-blooded murder or assassination. This is clearer thanks to the name of the weapon's wielder, and also the 9 guardians that were killed. Red Death still represents a mystery, but the question then remains, what possessed the Red Death? Why did it fight the cleansing, notably fight it, even when light was poured into it? And what gave its form a shadowed purpose, and how? I don't understand it, but I think we may have the first example of a truly cursed weapon in Destiny beyond the limits of what the Hive can do. A curse that has been lifted, and a weapon which now serves the light. And now that its curse has been lifted, the danger has surely passed. Hasn't it? Oh, but yes, even as there was a perpetrator, there is an accomplice. They call it Crimson. This was released during the Curse of Osiris, and its lore is not at all substantial, but it does tell us that in the times after the Red War, it was forged out of a sense of desperation, out of a sense that something had to be done in case the light, and specifically the Guardians' ghosts, were no longer enough. According to official Vanguard policy, this weapon does not exist. This is crazy. You don't need this thing. I can heal you. That's my whole job. I thought your job was to state the obvious. What? Oh, come on. Ever since you found me, it's been, watch out, fallen ahead when they're right in front of me. Or, my favorite, seems like this door's locked. Is it really? I couldn't tell. And when it's not that, you say I need to be more self-sufficient in case we lose the light again. So here's my answer. Here's the remedy. I was just trying to help. So I suppose the question remains, is the curse of Red Death truly broken? Or are there perhaps more cursed weapons out there in the system, possessed by the same shadows? There is an alternate theory I want to pose around Red Death, one that deserves its own video, but for the moment, this is the lore of the weapon that Vanguard policy urges you to destroy. This is the story of what we know of the Red Death, the Butcher, and the one who cleansed it, so that it might find purpose anew. Anyway, that's all from me for now. Thank you so much for watching, and for more stories from worlds afar, go ahead and hit subscribe. Remember to let me know what you liked about this video in the comments section as well. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave a like too. But as per usual, know that your viewership as always is quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.